And then finally, next page, in 325, we have the Council of Nicaea. And that is called by the emperor himself. And so this is really the big one, the important one. Constantine puts pressure on everyone. He says, look, I've just, as Dan shared, I've just conquered the eastern part of the empire, and now I'm going to be the sole ruler of the entire Roman Empire. Before Constantine, there were 4 rulers that worked together. After Constantine, there was 1 ruler that had absolute power. And he says, you guys need to agree on who Jesus is if you're Christians. And it doesn't really matter to him which side wins. He just needs it to agree so he can use Christianity as the ideological glue to hold together his empire. The pagan thing is over. And so he proposes, so he gets Eusebius of Caesarea's baptismal creed, which was no doubt from Origen, and he adds to it the word homoousios. And this word means of the same being, or of the same stuff, or essence. It's like hard to translate, because it's like the word being. What does that even mean? It could mean so many different things. And so a lot of people, they don't like it. A lot of people say, yeah, that's pretty good. And so Arius and 2 other Libyan clergymen won't sign the creed, and they're sent off into exile. And like I said before, far from ending the controversy, far from settling the matter, it starts the controversy. And now we meet the man whose name means immortality, Athanasius. And he's hard to kill, Athanasius. I think, to answer your question, Dan, I think you don't go after the mob boss himself. You just don't do that, because you'll get killed way before you get near him. He's the expert at that sort of thing. You don't go after him. So I don't think anybody ever seriously tried to kill Athanasius. Anyhow, so this is from the Bible, Galatians 5:19 to 23. And I'm just going to skip down to the part where it says the fruit of the Spirit. The fruit of the Spirit, the last 2 lines there, is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such there is no law. That's how we're supposed to be as Christians. The fruit of the Spirit. Let's talk about Athanasius. His character. These are the good things I can say about him. You should always say something good about somebody. We joke at the theological conference in Atlanta that if you have nothing good to say about somebody when you come up for the questions, the least you can do is compliment them on their tie. Say, well, nice tie, but everything you said was completely idiotic. But at least you start with nice tie. So I wore a tie today just in case. And so here's some good things to say about Athanasius. He was very courageous. The guy... Yeah, you just don't say that to the emperor, right? Athanasius did, twice, and got away with it both times. He maintained a single-minded focus on establishing Nicene theology. His whole idea was, we have to get this Trinity accepted among all Christians and get rid of everyone who doesn't believe in it. That was his only single focus, and he stayed true to that as well. And look, when you have one focus in life, that can be a real advantage. It can make you boring for conversation, but it can make you a real advantage because you're just focused on that one thing. And he maintained that through his whole life. And then number 3, he had an attractive personality. There were a couple of times that he ran into the emperor who was really upset with him. And once he got a private audience with the emperor, he had no difficulty at flipping the emperor to be on his side. It happened more than once. And so he's one of these people that, if you met him, he knew how to work you. He had this attractive personality. Okay, so Athanasius' behavior. Now we did the good, the bad. We'll do the bad and the ugly now. This is all from R.P.C. Hansen's book. He has a whole chapter called Athanasius' Behavior. Imagine that, a whole chapter in his book on this. And here are 6 things that I found that I think kind of parallel the fruit of the Spirit or contrast the fruit of the Spirit. He would not allow Arians or Meletians to meet for worship in his area and did everything he could to prevent their gatherings, even though the Arian territories did not show the same intolerance. So if you came to an Arian territory, they would let you have worship. They wouldn't interfere. But if you were in Athanasius' territory, he was completely intolerant. He would take the church building away from you and say, you can't meet in my district. He was very intolerant. Unkind, I would say that would be. Number 2, he was very verbally abusive. He used ferocious and vituperative language when writing about his opponents. He would lacerate them. He would violently dissect, slander, and maim their words as if they were people. You know, Ruth told me a story about a boss she had that used to go like this when she got angry. And pretend she was choking you from a distance. It was just so weird. But I think Athanasius sort of did that when he was writing his letters. He's like, I'm choking you with these words. You know, not at all a gentle or a joy-filled letter that you read when you get one from him and you don't agree with him. Number 3, he frequently exaggerated and lied about facts. For example, there's this time that the pro-Trinity people were saying, well, Jesus is God because in the Bible it says He's the great power of God. So the Arians had a comeback. The comeback was, well, in the Old Testament the locust is called the great power of God. So God doesn't just have one great power. You know, we're not, obviously the locust isn't God, right? And so Athanasius would say, you Arians believe that Jesus is a locust. You know, and he would just like distort the whole thing and come out with a way to spin it. Or no, he says that you honor the locust more than the Savior, which is obviously not what the Arians were saying at all. So he would do that sort of thing frequently. He viciously, number 4, persecuted the Melicians, having them arrested, beaten, and sometimes forced to leave the area. I mean, when the thugs show up at your door, at your place of worship, and they throw your valuables on the floor and crash them and beat you up and then leave, you know, we've crossed the line somewhere. Somewhere back there was the line, and we're over here now, way past it, okay? When we start beating each other up, when he said, love your enemies. So that was starting to happen. Number 5, he employed thugs hired to intimidate his enemies. According to Hansen, this is what Hansen writes. And Hansen is this. He's a UK guy. I don't know if he was British. University of Durham, I think. Yeah. So he's someone that's given to understating what he means to say. And he died in 1988. I mean, he's not. He was not someone given to exaggeration. But this is what he says about, and he's a big-time scholar too. He says, the first efforts of gangsterism. I mean, when do you see a scholar use the word gangsterism? Seriously. The first efforts, I wish I could do his actions, the first efforts of gangsterism in his diocese, you know, had nothing to do with the difference of opinion about the subject of the Arian controversy. So he calls him a gangster. You know, I mean, really something. For example, in 332, he was accused of having Macarius visit a presbyter called Iscyrus and assault him and break his chalice. Rather than denying he ever did this, Athanasius just attacks that the guy was ever legitimately ordained as a priest. He never denies the violence. He says, well, but it's violence against a layman. He wasn't really a priest. So the fruit of Athanasius, if we had to evaluate him. Oh, number 6, multiple times he refused to attend councils that he was summoned to. Which means he's not a team player. He goes to the council if he's in charge, if he has the power, if it's going to go his way, he shows up. If he's called to a council, he doesn't come. So that's the sort of unfairness that you see in him. The fruit of Athanasius is, and I just sort of inverted the fruit of the Spirit, hatred, constant controversy, violence, impatience, unkindness, badness, right? Unfaithfulness, brutality, and a lack of self-control. One time he got in trouble with Constantine, and he lost it on Constantine. He started yelling at Constantine. That didn't go well. You know, you don't flip your lid at the emperor. I mean, that's... He got kicked out of the whole empire for that one. Richard Rubinstein writes that Athanasius was exiled from Alexandria 5 times, pursued by imperial troops to be arrested several times. And, yeah, we can delete the "and" there. He called Arians, Athanasius called Arians Ariomaniacs. Ariomaniacs. So he's just like one of these kinds of guys. You know what I mean? I think I've described him. Now, when we do history, we can't shrink somebody into a one-dimensional or simplified box that encapsulates their whole life. Athanasius did a lot of good things too. You know what I mean? And I'm not focusing on the good things because I have a certain amount of time and I have a certain angle and approach, and what I'm trying to show you is that the people that were behind popularizing and defending the Trinity used unchristian methods. That's all I'm trying to say. And so I'm not going to get into the fact that Athanasius might have wrote a beautiful poem over here or sermon over here. Maybe he did. I don't know. He's a complex person just like all of us. But this I know, when it came to defending the Trinity, he used ungodly means. A lot. In 328, there was a council at Nicomedia that ruled in favor of Arius. In 335, at the Council of Tyre, Alexander has died, and guess who takes over as the bishop of Alexandria? It's Athanasius. So he's been groomed. He was at the Council of Nicaea, but now he's finally installed as the bishop of Alexandria. Just a few minutes here, and then I'll wrap it up. At the Council of Tyre in 335, Athanasius is put on trial, and he's found guilty of beating, kidnapping, torture, and burning down churches. He presents himself to Constantine and begs for clemency, but the evidence is too strong against him, and he's banished to Trier in Gaul, where they don't even speak Greek. And Athanasius speaks Greek, so that's not going to be any good. But then Constantine dies, and when the emperor dies, you're allowed to come back. So he comes back in 337, and then he goes on the run, and he builds support, just like a terrorist network of cells. He builds support in the deserts. He gets St. Anthony on his side. And eventually writes a book about Anthony called Anthony, I forget what it's called. It's a biography of Anthony the hermit in the desert, and you know, he spends Anthony's whole life in favor of supporting the Trinity, and he even gets Anthony to come, because he was like the rock star of the Christian world. He gets Anthony to come to Alexandria and say what Athanasius says is right, you know, and gets his support. Anything to get his cause to win.